You know what I mean? And getting that.
We want to welcome everybody here. It is now 6 p.m. and we'd like to call this Ephraim City Council meeting to order. Candace, would you do a roll call, please?
Yes. Councilmember Warfield,
Here.
Councilmember Stevens.
Here.
Mayor Scott.
Here.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Bill.
Yes.
And Councilmember Birch.
Here. Thank you. We'd like to have an opening prayer by Megan Sperling, followed by a flag ceremony by Trey Birch.
Our Father in heaven, we are grateful to be gathered here tonight for the Ephraim City Council meeting, and we pray that your guidance will be with us as we discuss and make decisions for the city of Ephraim. We are grateful to live in such a wonderful community, and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Please stand with me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Megan. Do you have any public comment?
Not making them.
Do you have any public comment either, Megan? Okay, we'd like to begin with item 1 on the agenda, the presentations of 1A, San Pete Trail feasibility study, Jones and DeMille. Hello, tell us your
Hello.
names.
Good evening. My name is McLean Farmer of Jones and DeMille Engineering. We presented here at the council before, and I'll let Matthew introduce himself.
Yeah, Matthew Lenhart, also with Jones and DeMille.
What's your last name?
Lenhart,
L-E-N?
yeah.
Okay.
So we presented, I don't know, probably 6 months ago here. It feels like it's been that long, probably not that long. But we've been working on this study, this regional corridor study for a bike trail from Gunnison to Fairview. In the middle of the study, we added Centerfield into that. So now it's Centerfield to Fairview. Just for the council's information, we've gone through multiple rounds of public involvement. We've met with city staff multiple times. And kind of gotten as much feedback as we can. And we took that feedback and implemented it into this plan itself. I will say that we are meeting specifically with Ephraim City Council to clarify a few things with you, just so that you understand what this plan is and what it's not. We want to make sure that you're educated in what's being presented here in this plan and make sure there's no concerns on your end of things. We know that there's been other plans presented here at the council, and we want to make sure that your involvement is specifically taken into account on this plan itself. So what we're going to do is we have a Google Earth shape file or KMZ file that we're going to show you tonight. What the path could look like in Ephraim, and this is the preferred alternative that we came up with based on the public comment that we received. We also talked about this in the last council meeting that we talked to you about, and then we also have taken into account a lot of the public feedback that we got, like I said. So I'll go ahead and share and let Matthew take over and then I'll take over once he's done. Can you? Do you have the Zoom
Yes. Just a second.
here?
So as McLean mentioned, this is a trail from Gunnison or from Centerfield to Fairview. And this is a 30% design. So basically what this study we're focusing on is determining the best location for the trail, determining if it will work within that location, what limitations there may be. And then eventually we're going to create a final cost estimate of what it's anticipated to cost, and then get all the information necessary to prepare municipalities for potential funding packages moving forward. So for your segment, we'll just focus on between Manti and then up to Pigeon Hollow Road, because that's probably what's going to be most relevant to you here in Ephraim. So coming from Manti, the trail will be, we have it placed on the east side of the highway there coming from Manti. And you can see this crossing right here. Yes, that would be helpful. There we go. So we've got a crossing here to get to the east side of the highway. And then along this corridor, we're just have that trail along the east side of the highway there. One of the biggest challenges we've run into with this trail is right-of-way constraints. That's one of the main reasons we're sticking on US 89 here, is that side roads between Manti and Ephraim just don't have the right-of-way width necessary to put a bike trail. And even US 89 has limited right-of-way to fit a bike trail in. But we are able to fit the bike trail in. However, it would require some form of barrier between the road and the trail. UDOT standard is concrete barrier. And for this segment where the right of way is tight, it would require concrete barrier for about 2/3 of the trail, which is a lot of concrete barrier to put between Manti and Ephraim. Obviously, there's cost issues associated with that, as well as potential aesthetic issues. Barrier also could present a safety hazard, even though it's intended to prevent worse crashes. It also is a safety hazard potentially. So those are conversations we're having with UDOT right now to try to determine how we can work through that to make it more feasible, less expensive, but also keep it safe.
What are some of those possibilities, like a curb versus a barrier that's 3 feet tall, or?
Yeah, so we've looked at different types of barrier. So potentially like a metal guardrail or delineators, like those posts on the edge of the road that would just line down the highway. Where this is a 30% study, UDOT doesn't necessarily want to give a solid answer, just because, you know, things can change if it takes 10 years to get it built, right? So right now we're assuming the concrete barrier because that's their standard, and that would be the most expensive as well. So if there is an exemption made later on, you could cut some of those costs, but potentially down the road, something we have looked at, something like a curb, potentially, but that technically isn't considered a physical barrier.
Just a couple of thoughts about this, sorry, did I? A couple things is tagging on the barrier, snow removal in the winter, and deer and elk trapping. Because they'll come to the barrier and then they'll stop right in front of traffic. Before they decide to cross the barrier generally.
Sure.
So just some things to think about.
And is the barrier, is the actual trail off in the borrow pit area or is it still on part of the highway?
So the trail would be completely separated, so it's a little hard to see. Here, let me find maybe a better spot. But you can see we've pushed that trail as close to the fence.
It's the black.
It's this black here with this yellow line. We've pushed it as close to the fence as we can to keep it as far away from the road as possible. And then that barrier, UDOT standard is to have that barrier just off the shoulder of the road. So it'd be about 8-10 feet off the travel lane. So that's still an open discussion, obviously. And snow removal is something that has been brought up as well from UDOT. Especially with the snow plows, if you have the snow, it just like shoots right over onto the trail. So, those are still some obstacles we're trying to overcome, but
This is maybe off topic a little bit, the existing ATV trails that are not up to code and but some are used by school aged kids and others are used by, I think, some of the local farmers and those types of things.
Farmers use it to run over bicyclists.
Yeah, but I would imagine that there is some, like I've run this several times between Manti and Easton, just on these on the 4-wheeler trails. And it's 6.5 miles from my house to where the temple is in Manti and back. And so I've done it quite a bit and know that there's some jogging and up and down. They're not great ruts, but there would be necessarily some overlap with existing ATV trail and the proposed.
yeah,
Right, I mean, there's not that much space to have the, for lack of a better word, legal and illegal.
yeah, so
coexisting.
yeah, so, where it's technically not a legal usage. This bike trail would, I guess, supersede that
I
usage.
just bring it up, this is a bicycle trail, not the ATV or motorcycle trail.
Yeah.
So.
And trails on Utah Trail, on the Utah Trail Network are not eligible to have ATVs on them, so it would not be ATV usable. Obviously, that's an enforcement issue. So it would come down to just enforcement on that. Wants to be.
Sorry, I know you guys are the engineering side, it's just, there's a lot of.
No, that's definitely an aspect that will need to be addressed.
I'm not sure that highway patrol is gonna take the time to enforce that. And I think by de facto, it's gonna become an ATV trail. And that's what it's been since ATVs were invented.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how you overcome that or.
Yeah, and there are things, you know, where this is a 30% design, we haven't necessarily looked into more detailed, like, prevention techniques for something like that. But there are things that you can do and design some like barriers of some sort to prevent ATVs from accessing the trail. That's another aspect of the barrier that we've discussed it would keep ATVs off of the trail.
Cause you would, sorry to speak out of turn here, but you would eliminate a lot of these barriers, figurative barriers by going west.
I agree.
Not east. Well, there's a lot of private land that are built. There's issues both ways, but way west, there's a road still that connects the two towns, right?
Are you talking the west side road over that connects up into?
Well, even the west side of 89
All the way to Wayne.
is going to be, I think, a little easier for, I think, I don't know, that's just my opinion, it might be a little easier to maintain and to do it. The crossing that you have over 89 is the most dangerous part of that section of 89.
It's right there by the temple.
Yeah, and that's something we've discussed with Manti, and they're in favor of having some sort of safer designated crossing there, with the potentially lower speed limit coming into town. Especially with the development coming in there with that Dollar General. And then the continued residential development on the east side of the highway there in favor of an increase or an improved crossing there. But as far as the west side of the highway goes, the biggest challenge we ran into is it's a lot less on the west side of the highway. Not the whole thing, but there are portions that are really tight. And so we're trying to avoid recommending a trail that would require right-of-way acquisition, just because that, if you can't force a landowner to sell the property, so if it came to that, it could kill the property.
Another thing on the west side, that we looked at is there's the high pressure gas line runs down the west side. And by putting that on top of the trail on top of that high pressure gas line, it increases the cost of the project.
You can't do it.
Yeah, we talked with, Enbridge, I guess it's called now, and they would definitely prefer us to be on the east side, because then we're not dealing with that high pressure gas running on the west.
Lanes a few miles away.
Yeah. And one of the concerns with that is this trail is like a regional trail, so we're trying to connect as many destinations as we can, but. Yeah, these are all things that will definitely need to be addressed in further detail later on, but. Hopefully this study can give kind of a preliminary idea, and then if, it's desired to seek funding, it will prepare you and make your application more appealing, so. Anyway, coming into town, we just continue on that east side. And then once we get into town, in some sections, we have the trail proposed just on the side of the road. Extending the pavement. In some sections, we have it proposed behind the sidewalk, doing a wider 12-foot sidewalk. Rather than putting it on the road. And that's mostly probably the biggest aspect of where we're putting the trail, came down to maintaining parking. Because we recognize that parking is an important aspect of the roadway corridor, particularly around the college. So we're trying to maintain that parking accessibility, so we can get into a little more detail on that in a minute, but. Anyway, coming in, we're coming down 700 south, down the south side there. And then over by the middle school, so we went over to 100 east just because Main Street, there's no room to put a bike trail on Main Street. And 100 east will access the park, the middle school, the college. And so we cross to the east side of 100 east. And continue up that east side, and then the gray, where the trail is gray, is where it would be concrete, like a concrete sidewalk, and where it's black is where it would be just part of the paved road. So that continues up past the middle school, and then we get onto the road, and we have delineated some parking locations here, and it varies from parallel parking, diagonal parking, perpendicular parking. Along this road corridor. For right now, we've included at major road crossings, improved safety features like, these medians here, that just shorten the distance of the crossing and improve the safety. Obviously, that is, as we discussed when we were meeting with city staff, that's a potential concern for maintenance. So that is something that could be altered down the road potentially, but
I have a question on the maintenance.
yeah, that's an excellent question. And I unfortunately don't have a great answer on that right now. So Utah Trail Network, which is, legislative funds that have been allocated for bike trails. They have been allocated for the construction and maintenance of bike trails. The construction, design, and maintenance of bike trails, so that would be state funding. They haven't determined yet how much of that is going to go towards maintenance or which bike trails it will maintain. So I'm sure there's gonna be a combination of maintenance by UDOT, by Utah Trail Network, and by municipalities, so.
I would just make the assumption that if you build a bike trail in Ephraim City, that you're going to maintain it until they tell you otherwise. That's what I'm.
So then we can
saying.
let it go.
What's that?
Oh,
Yeah, that's kind of the answer I've been giving is like, assume the worst and hope for the best.
It's still bike trails are still very early on in Utah, and there's been this push from Governor Herbert and, or Governor Cox, yeah, sorry. There's been this push from Governor Cox, and from UDOT to start building these bike trails, and so kind of a lot of those little kinks haven't really been worked out yet.
well, that brings up another question to me. Over a period of 12 months, how long are the bike trails used? And is the cost associated with that, with whatever time they put in?
Yeah, and that's probably gonna come down to each municipality in each area, right? Like some areas, you'll potentially have a lot more users, and some areas you may have less. And so that's something in Ephraim, will probably need to determine, is this gonna be?
So what are your figures, the usage time? 5, 6?
I think you could have people, as long as they're not covered in snow, you could have people using them year round, especially around the college. I think college students will use a trail to get to from class year round. As far as recreationally, yeah, you may see a lot more usage 7 months out of the year, but it's hard to predict. I don't know. Add to that.
I mean, looking statewide, you do get the more traffic on them in that 7-month window. During the winter months, usage goes down. While looking at like Sevier County and some of the counties around that have bike paths and bike trails, you'll still see people on them year round. It's just most of them are walking, not cycling in the winter months, so.
I will just continue up here on 100 East. So you can see that we've designated the parking areas. It's mostly parallel parking we've designated. Until you get closer to the college.
Just real quick clarification, so that keeps the existing sidewalk. And builds the trail into the road, that basically widens the trail and narrows the road a little bit, right? That's the assumption here, so just want to make that clarification. That particular road is really wide, and there's space to do it, but I just want to make that distinction.
Where you put snow? Where you put snow? We're pushing snow up on the side. So that's a big stop.
And that's something that would have to be, worked through, whether you wanna keep the bike trail open year round despite the snow and figure something out there, or whether you just want to do something else with maintenance, but that is definitely an aspect that needs to be observed. As far as parking goes, I would say with putting the trail in, we were able to maintain about 90% of the parking. Which, all things considered, getting a bike trail and maintaining 90% of the on-street parking, I think is a pretty good trade-off. Especially around the college here, you can see where we've designated those parking stalls.
But look how narrow the street becomes.
Basically, it becomes a two-way street, and then you have your angled parking.
Right.
Yep.
But. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's, with a lot of these cities down here, they weren't with the grid system, they weren't designed for adding a trail in. That wasn't even a thought process, right? 100 years ago, but so there are going to be some trade-offs.
And just really quick, to speak on this area around campus. There were several alternates that we looked at. So one of those, we originally had looked at maybe coming down 200 east instead of 100 east. So coming down 200 east and coming through the college actually, instead of down 100 east on the side of that road. Couple issues there. The college did not want us going through campus, one, just because of all the foot traffic that's in the middle of campus there. Two, the schools on 200 east, we would have to cut through campus on the school's property. And we talked with the school district and they didn't want us to do that either. So 200 east was essentially eliminated for security and safety there. 100 east ultimately was chosen for their wide width and then its connections to Main Street, connections to the college and connections. And from the public feedback that we got, all of those were critical connections that people wanted us to make sure we connected. But
So at the college, we have the trail wrapping up around the college and then going over to 200 east. 200 east is obviously a road that goes all the way up through town. And so from that point on, we carry the bike trail along the east side of 200 east up past the baseball fields there and the park. And then it just continues up 200 east all the way to those new townhomes. I believe 700 north of that. And then continues along that south side of 700 north, and then at that intersection with the cemetery and Walmart, we connect back into Main Street, head up the east side of Main Street out of town.
Well, the one modification that we are gonna make that Brian mentioned to us during our review with them is the apartments built a retaining pond out here. They built those apartments. Just before this meeting, we went and measured a few things so that we can make adjustments to what we have designed on this section. So that would adjust based on the measurements we took today. And then the cost will then reflect those changes in the cost of each segment that we're doing cost estimates for each segment that we're doing. And so that cost will reflect in that final design. I know there's a lot of concern tonight. We're happy to answer questions tonight, so feel free to ask them to us. Any concerns on the parking? I mean, we've maintained all but about 10 spots that were there previously. I do know that the snow removal is a valid concern, and that would be a trade-off with putting this trail in, would be a trade-off that the city would have to look into is, okay, we put the trail in, we may have to deal with some snow on the trail itself, or some of that parallel parking through 100 East might be taken away for a time until it melts. That's a trade-off that the city would then have to weigh its options to see if it's worth putting in the trail or if the city just sticks with what they have.
There are quite a few, like, older properties, like right across from the suites at Snow College, that don't have off-street parking, very much of it, and so they're already complaining about the parking conflicts with students, because the parking lot isn't big enough either, apparently.
The trail goes around those.
Yeah, oh, okay. Oh, it goes up to
It's
Second
at the
East.
Suites. It
Okay.
Goes up to Second
Second
East.
Okay, that's smart.
Question, assuming you find the money. And that's a big question to me, that's an assumption, I'll just play it out as we do it. Do we as a city have a choice in this?
Oh, yeah. You don't have to allow this trail to go on at all.
So the point of this study is just to find based off of municipal and public feedback. And engineering design the best location for a regional bike trail. So, the goal is basically to go through that public involvement process and see, what are people interested in? And what are people not interested in? And then prepare something to present each municipality, so you can say, hey, this is something that we want to pursue. This is something that we would like to get funding for, and so we would prepare this study so that you could use that to just step into some funding applications pretty easily.
I think you've answered all, our previous concerns with rerouting the trail. I like what you've actually done with that. I think Jeff's concerns are valid about snow removal. Of course, every council member here, that I think the concern that they have at the immediate top is cost. And where do we find those grants? And what if we don't find grants? What if we commit to this? And then, because grant sources are drying up right now. I don't know how much the state is going to offer us. This is something that we would not probably want to put on our residents' backs for something like this. And so I would be very interested in grants and making sure that but then, and Lloyd voiced this a little bit, what about maintenance, future maintenance in 15 years when this begins to degrade? Who's responsible for upkeep and maintenance? I think all those questions would be important for us to have before we ever said, hey, we feel good about, I feel good about the concept. I love the concept. It's just that those other questions could be very determinative about how we support this project.
For sure.
So I ride my bike on this road now. I ride around the city frequently doing this. I can see the safety that comes from that. But my question would be, what if just connecting the towns and not including the bike path through the city, but allowing the residents to continue to ride bikes like they do currently in the city, and then have the bike path continue to the next town? Is that an option on this, where you have to have it connected from point A to point B, and then instead of having maybe painted on the road a path instead of trying to upgrade it? Does that make sense as you're thinking about? I know safety is an issue, but I'm riding my bike down First East 2 or 3 times a week already, so.
Yeah, to answer that question, there's a couple of questions in there. This is not a requirement for the city to implement. This is just giving the cities and the county and the citizens a tool to be able to maybe go get funding if that's a desire. So by us presenting this and you being okay with the concept of it, that is not saying that the city needs to go build this tomorrow. This is just giving you a tool in your tool belt to be able to say, hey, Utah Trail Network, we've done this study. You have $50 million a year to spend on bike trails. Then we get a chunk of that. And so to answer your question, the chunks between cities is, in my opinion, gonna be the hardest to implement. The reason for that is, unless the cities get on board between those 2 cities and they partner up and ask for some funding, or you get the county on board to ask for funding. I think in the cities where you're working as an individual city yourself, it's gonna be a lot easier unless you're able to partner with the city adjacent to you, to get the funding to do between the cities. So it's still an option. I don't think you take that off the table by any means. But where you're the sole, if you're building it strictly in Ephraim City, you're just the sole sponsor of that funding application.
And just so you know, this last week I went on a trip on one of these bike paths in another location and it was used for biking and walking. It was a lot of use. I think it's a wonderful idea, but I do think the concerns we're sharing are valid.
Yeah.
I think we need to address those.
Did those paths that you were on, that barrier?
Well, they
did,
had lava.
yeah.
Okay.
There were barriers to prevent motorized vehicles from getting on it, and there were bridges were particular, and it was a little bit further off the road in some of the places. But they're wonderful, especially for people who want to use bikes and to walk and to not have to deal with traffic with that. And so there is a great need for some of those things, but there are also the concerns that we're talking about.
One of the envies that I have, quite frankly, is the trail that you've been describing from about Joseph to Marysville. And it's probably 35 miles of trail. And I have watched that on all times of the year. It's usually a walking trail. I know UDOT built it, but who maintains it?
The county,
The county maintains it.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Pretty, except for Richfield City's piece that they own in the city, the city maintains that. Richfield City just completed their portion from, where it ended at the Rotary Park down to Walmart there in Richfield. And then the county just finished all the way to Annabella. So it goes from Big Rock Candy Mountain now down to Annabella. So there's opportunities out there for funding too, like there's, I can talk about that for a second. There's TPA funding, which is through UDOT. TPA is through the Joint Highway Committee. They offer a grant typically of $1.5 million. They capped it as of last year. So you can get $1.5 million per year, or per project, I should say. And you can phase projects. So let's say this was a $6 million, we don't have a direct number that I can give you tonight. But let's say this were $6 million to build. You could build that in 4 phases with that funding. There's also RAISE grant funding this grant that was paid for this study actually funded.
What is that called again?
It's called RAISE. Oh, wait.
It's called Build.
Yeah, now they call it Build. New administrations call it different things, but it's the same grant. The Build grant can also fund these.
Is that a federal grant or a state grant?
Federal, and that one, typically most of the grants that are federal will have like a 20% match.
Which is a killer for rural cities.
Yeah. Utah Trail Network's another option. It's not technically a grant, that's something more, funds have been allocated and they kind of decide where to put them.
Trying to think of others.
Those are probably
Don't worry about it.
Outdoor rec. There's outdoor rec has some grants as well, so. So there's multiple opportunities there to build infrastructure like this. And really the hope is that this plan can be used then to leverage and say, hey, we've looked at the feasibility of this. We have a cost associated with it from this study, and now we're coming to apply for those funds.
And so does your organization apply for these grants or is that left up to our staff?
So this grant that provided the work that was done here tonight will be closed out in November. Now Jones and DeVille, as a company, we can help you apply for that. But we'd be happy to.
Is there more than one group studying this area? It seems like I've heard.
Yeah.
And we've had somebody else come in.
That's the main reason we're here tonight. We heard there was some confusion. So when we talked about, there's 3 grants that have happened in the last, I don't know, 5 years, I would think. So the previous city manager started a grant with Bike Utah. You had a presentation from them probably 2-3 months ago. they discussed putting a trail along Main Street.
which was very frightening.
The turning, yeah.
So that is a completely separate grant, completely separate entity from what we're looking at here today. This grant was applied through, Spring City. Spring City applied on behalf of Bike Stampede, the nonprofit. And Spring City is the one who applied and got the funding, but Bike Stampede kind of pushed that to happen. And then the last one is that the city just recently got a raised grant. It's not been the funding hasn't been allocated. But it's a raised grant to study just the city itself. For active transportation and, there's one more component, a multimodal piece, I think. But that grant hasn't even started yet. So the Bike Utah one was one the old city manager started, and it's been probably a 2-year, I'm guessing 2-year process-ish. And they presented a few months back. We wanted to get in front of you again, make sure you understand what we're presenting, and we hope that you're okay with the concept of what we're looking at, and then down the road, we'd be willing to help you out, looking at this in further detail.
What is the width, the desired width of the path?
12 feet is the standard, from UDOT, but there are probably segments that'll be 10 feet, but between 10 and 12 feet.
The curve,
Yeah, from like back to curb. So it'd be like a 12-foot wide sidewalk, basically. Yeah. So we will send, we're gonna create a website that will have all of this information on it that you'll be able to access, the public will be able to access. And then we'll send this KMZ drawing that we've been showing you. We can send that to the city staff and they can share that with you so you can cut it in a little more detail, but and then, yeah, we're happy if you have questions to take any of those.
thank you.
Thanks for your time. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to consent items, ratification of warrant register between August 16th, 2025 and August 30th, 2025, and approval of August 20th, 2025 city council meeting minutes. Looking for a motion.
I motion that we approve the consent items.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Councilmember Bill, second by Councilmember Stevens, all in favor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Moving on to study agenda, item A, expansion of Skyline Corridor District. Jenna, are you?
Jenna is here.
Oh, she's online.
Yes, she is.
I am.
Hi, Jenna.
Hello. Sorry, I'm driving, but I'm here.
It's okay.
So Ephraim Crossing came to us with their tax sharing agreement, and as we've been going through and discussing their PID and different things that they're doing, we've realized that when we created the project area, we left out a few of the parcels that are actually within the Ephraim Crossing development. Katie and Candace, if one of you got that map, I sent it to you just before this meeting started, so I'm not sure if you've been able to see it or not. But there's 4 parcels that we inadvertently missed when we were creating the project area that we would like to go back through and do an amendment and add in so that they can capture the differential from those 4 parcels to go towards their bond repayment.
We're
A little west. These two.
Sorry, is the map up? I'll
It-
explain it. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. So the
Mm.
orange area is the current project area, and the blue areas are the parts that we need to add in. So the part on the right side is townhomes. It's across the highway. And then the part on the left is going to be part of their industrial park development. And they're just asking us to put those in the project area so that when they build those out, they can capture the differential to help pay back the bond for the roads. Sorry, you kind of cut out. Was there a question?
You own those parcels already, is that correct?
Correct, they do, yes. And then it's part of their planned development.
Is parcel 694 or 6096, is that R1 land? Okay, okay.
No, that piece that they own currently it does not involve our wind or anything. That's strictly north of the piece for Salt Creek.
Okay. So 6094 and 6096 is industrial.
Currently.
Yes, from what I understand it is.
Currently.
Okay.
And I've made sure in the tax sharing agreement that they are not collecting funds from anywhere outside of the land that they own. So the Soap Creek property, the Cobblestone Hotels property, the CJ, any of the other property that's in the project area is not part of their tax sharing agreement. I've made very sure and very clear that that is not included in this repayment.
Is this just inadvertently left off? Is that the deal?
Sorry, what was that?
I think she can hear you, Mayor.
Jenna, were these 4 parcels just inadvertently left out?
Yeah, when we created the original maps, I'm not sure. I was working with the old city manager. I'm not sure if he wasn't sure that they were going to be included, or we weren't sure. I'm not sure if maybe at that time somebody else owned them, so we didn't include them. I'm not sure where the disconnect was, but yeah, they were just inadvertently missed when we created the project area. They should have been included. It was something that Ephraim Crossing had requested, but when we created the maps and went through the process, we just neglected to bring them, to add those in.
Any other questions, council members?
And this is just study tonight, so you don't have to make a motion or anything like that.
Okay.
It's just for your information, start thinking about it.
All right, thank you, Jenna. I think we understand the location and the need.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to action agenda. Number 4A, Oberg rezone. Megan.
Okay, so Craig Oberg has requested a rezone of these 2 parcels that are highlighted in yellow. He owns the property and it's just right in back of his current business, and he wants them rezoned industrial for the purpose of expanding his current business. We did have a little bit of a conflict with the current property owner to the east. If you see the pin that says current C2 zone, it's that parcel. He has plans to do a residential development there and was concerned about it being kind of an industrial zone and a big, huge building abutting right up against his property. The planning commission did recommend that the property owners work together to come up with a solution. They did do so. Craig is going to do a 60-foot setback from the property line because it's a requirement for a fire lane anyway. And then they are willing to both cost share on an 8-foot fence to kind of be a little bit higher than your average fence.
Is that a screened fence?
They're wanting to do like cinder block. So it's, yeah.
We'll try.
And then the residential side, they're gonna plant trees and stuff like that, just to create a little bit of more of a barrier for any type of noise or things like that. Any fence over 7 feet does require city council approval. So if you are approving the rezone, you are okay with them building that 8-foot fence, if you would also kind of
It
word that
doesn't
into the
obstruct
motion.
traffic at any intersections or anything, so you couldn't see past it.
No, so let me just. The fence is gonna be here,
Okay,
so this is the road and this is the road, this is the back of Craig's property.
gotcha.
And then the residential development will be here and they'll come out and enter on this road.
And the one to the right is where Craig's business is located. No, over here. The one to the right.
One else.
Oh,
Trailer court.
Oh,
this is, yeah,
that's, okay.
that's the trailer court that is.
Just down at the very bottom on that little dot right there, bottom is.
This is Theo.
Yeah. Just there. Where's the fire lane going to be? The 60-foot back and the fire lane part of that, is it right by the wall or where's that?
Yeah. This will back 60 feet off that wall, so that if the fire truck needs to come back in, maybe get to that.
That's pretty generous.
Yes,
That's very generous.
yeah,
Seems like not the most amicable way.
right, they really work together quite well, so it was good that way, and so the planning commission did unanimously vote to approve the rezone. Any questions for me?
Any questions, further questions, council members? Looking for a motion?
Just remember, if you're good with the 8-foot fence, to include that into the motion, please.
I motion that we approve the Oberg rezone request to rezone the property, including the construction of an 8-foot fence barrier
On the east side.
on the east side of the property,
Would you just include the address?
near 200 north and 400 west. And we're moving it from general commercial C2 to industrial I to allow expansion of their business.
Second,
Motion made by Councilmember Bill, second by Councilmember Anderson, all in favor.
Yes.
Moving on to item B, awarding of the Ephraim City Public Works Building bid. Brian,
Actually, is this going to be Chad's here as well?
yeah.
Okay.
So I'll get started and then I'll turn some time over to Chad, who is a consultant from Jones and Mill, project manager over this project. We have completed the first phase, almost completed. We're just one or two last items with the fence mostly for the public works building. This is the next phase for going vertical with the building. So we've basically got the site prepped. We've got rough grade established. If you've driven by, you see it's dramatically different than it was 6 months ago. We're now getting ready to go vertical with this. So we have already purchased the buildings. They're standing. The kids are there on property now, the steel building. This will finalize the entire public works building. So going vertical, the commodity shed in the back, the final prep and landscaping and things like that. So with that, maybe I'll turn the time over to Chad. We did go out to bid. You have the bid results in your packet there on page 36 is where they start. And Chad, can you hear us?
Yep, I've got you. Can you guys hear me okay?
Barely. Where's his voice coming from?
I'll try to keep my voice close to my speaker here.
Yeah, as loud as you can would be great.
Okay. So as part of the bid, what we asked for is a complete price to put up the structures and to complete the site, as well as the number of days that they would require to do that. Now, the number one bid for this project came in from Todd Alder Construction at $3,435,300. And so right now he is he's the best price by about $300,000, a little over 300,000. And you know, the second, and he was also tied with the number of days with the third winner of the third highest bid on the project. We've had some discussion about this, and I understand there could be some possible concerns, not necessarily with the performance or the quality of the work of Todd Alder Construction, but there may be some concern with timeline and past projects of him completing projects on time. And so we wanted to leave this up to city council. You know, we've got the information in front of you presented with the bids. Um, we also have in the project liquidated damages that can be applied to the project if it is not completed with the number of days that he has scheduled there. Brian, we we know that this may be a topic that city council wants to discuss somewhat. Do we want to open this up, or I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding the bids, the number of days and the pricing?
Well, yeah, I do. You mentioned quality of construction, and I know that Todd Alder Construction has had some problems with some of their subcontractors, and it's reflected on him pretty hard. What steps can we as a city or you as an engineer do to help mitigate some of those challenges that are faced?
Do you want to take that, Chad?
Yeah, so Jones and DeMille, we will be covering the second phase of this project with an on-site construction observation personnel and materials testing during this. Now, we're not necessarily there to babysit his subcontractors, but basically what we have is just the number of days that we can hold him to and then start adding in liquidated damages to that. But there will be regular inspections for inspection items along with the county and the development department there. It's until you get into it, you can't say for sure if he's going to have problems with his subcontractors, but those are some of the things that we do is we do have regular weekly construction meetings. We do have personnel on site regularly overseeing, you know, the different items of construction. And that's what we can do on our end, but it really is up to the contractor to fulfill his contract as he's agreed to do.
It should be mentioned, we did call Todd in the day after we got the results for the bid. We asked him about his schedule, what's your schedule looking like? Sometimes he can be spread pretty thin with this group. He did say he's just finishing up really two pretty big projects. So he feels like he can have a lot more time to devote to this one. We asked him about his time to finish on time. He told us he was confident he could get there. Based off of some of his other workload, lightening up a little bit on some of that. So I just wanted to let you know that we have talked to him and we've asked him about, you know, his availability and his schedule and things.
To protect both the city and Todd and Jones and DeMille, what kind of cost would we look at to double the inspections? And is that possible?
We can look at that in our proposal. If you guys want somebody there, you know, daily, we can do that. You know, it's we can definitely include that in our hour. What we did on our last phase is just an hourly budget. We gave an estimate. We were able to come in a little bit under because we weren't needed on site as much. So we were able to save a little bit of that planned money that we can include in this next phase to have people on site more frequently, you know, daily oversight of the construction activities type of thing.
Here's Brian, this is gonna take 8 months.
Yeah, so we talked about the priority of this. We had a pre-bid meeting with everyone who bid. By the way, we did have 14 people bid on this. That's probably the most I've ever seen on a city project. So we had a really good turnout for bids. A lot of the people were kind of right in that same window of time, and money. They were pretty tight grouping there, but Todd did beat all of them by, quite a bit on this little bit. As far as the time to completion, we have always understood that the total completion is gonna be tricky to get, right? What we're really hoping, we've asked them, the priority is the building to get the shell up and focus on that so that we could start moving off the site for the other site. And then less of an urgency is the office space. We have some places that we can use for office here while he finishes that up. If he has to pave the parking lot in the springtime, there's allowances for that. But really, we want to be far enough along that we can start to move off of our site and have a place to go, even if it's just a shell. This fall, that would be the goal. That's a pretty aggressive timeline.
So when can he start? Do we have a start date?
He said he could get to it pretty much as soon as we give him a notice to proceed. He could start mobilizing guys. That's what he told us last week.
He said tomorrow.
Tomorrow, literally, he said the day after the council meeting, he said.
Jeff, did you have some comment?
As I was talking back there, Brian pretty much covered all of my concerns. My only concern is the main concern is the shop space. Because without the shop space, I mean, Kerry just as well phone it in because he's got nowhere to do anything. We talked about a possibility, not with Corey yet, talked about a possibility of maybe Kerry using that old shop for a little bit where Corey does not have his stuff. It's everywhere is just inundated with construction and storage and everything else. So we're gonna try to not have to get a modular office put down there. But in reality, I think we're gonna need office space for probably 6 months. We can get our stuff off the yard. We'll probably have to rent probably 2 or 3 Connex containers to put down on site to just start moving our stuff into. But yeah, and Todd also said that once they got the footers in, they could start standing up the red iron and then they could work on the floor and everything else. And he thought that we could at least be in one corner of the shop while they were working on another portion and kind of just shuffle stuff around if we absolutely had to. So that's what we're hoping. We realize the timelines don't really jive, but we'll do the best we can. So.
How many square feet is this building supposed to be?
It's 120 by 120.
120 by 120?
Yeah. Yeah, that'll include a main shop, maintenance shop, which is the size of the one we have out there. Right now that we're replacing. And that would include 2 60 by 60 shops to basically for all of our storage. We're basically just replacing the square footage we have now, just all in one building. Right now we're out there scattered, 5 or 6 buildings, so.
Any other questions, council members? Looking for motion?
I'll move that we award the Ephraim City Public Works building bid to Todd Alden Construction.
Second.
Would you please include the price?
For an amount of $3,435,300. to be completed in 240 days.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Councilmember Nordfeld, second by Councilmember Bill. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Any opposed? Okay, tell him to go to work tomorrow. I'm serious. And it took my breath away, the 240 days. For obvious reasons. Okay, moving on to item C, ECR 25-18, America 250, Michael.
So as part of the city events for this next year, we're wanting to participate in the Utah 250 celebrations for the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. As part of that, they have a logo that we can use as a community partner, and also a stipend of $1,500 that we would get from the state to help with our events that we're planning. So in order to qualify to use that logo and receive that stipend, they are requiring us to establish a committee for the America 250 celebration and have a resolution passed. And so this resolution is to meet that requirement so that we can continue and get established as an official community partner for the America 250 Utah celebration.
Any questions, council members? Any questions, council members?
No, I think it's great. I think it's wonderful.
Picking up speed too, since we first heard about it, I feel like.
Looking for a motion then?
I motion that we commit to the America 250 and fulfill their ECR 25-18 requirements so that we can receive the stipend and celebrate with the state.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Burton, second by Councilmember Anderson, all in favor?
Yes.
Oh, okay. You had a question. Okay, item D has been removed from the agenda. Council reports. We'll start with Councilmember Nordfeld.
I think everything that I have to say has been said here. We had a good planning and zoning. I will say just regarding the bike study and the bike trail, have been a lot of folks interested in that and excited about it. If we can find the money for it, right? If they don't have to pay for it.
Yeah.
So that's from the recreation board as well.
Thank you.
Back to you.
Okay, Councilmember Anderson.
Picnic co here. Representative Owens, both in Fairview, and talking a little bit about power. I didn't feel like he talked as much about power resources. Mainly talked, we've got to explore nuclear for one thing. And then I also heard him at 5:30 down in Mamsack that night. So anyway, and if they redistrict everything, that's going to be interesting for us and for Representative Owens, because I don't think we'll be a match for the district map the way it is now. There'll be a lot of fighting for that district map. So that's all on the political side right now.
Good to be giving a little report about that.
Okay.
That it?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll be able to see the what they've been doing with the power building today, and we're moving forward with it. And Corey is excited, as excited can be, what's happening with that. And I think it's a really good thing that's moving forward. And I think they're on time. Hopefully they're going to be done by early next year.
Yeah, 2026. Like early 2020, May.
May.
Yeah. Okay. Katie and I met with our Washington DC lobbying firm today. And I have some concerns. I visited with Senator Owens about these concerns. We had a long and a good talk today about redistricting. This is how the law and the provision was set up. Is that on the left side, you see the legislative redistricting committee process, which included holding public hearings, vote to recommend maps, and submit maps to the legislature. The new citizen referendum said also we would establish an independent redistricting commission, and they would go through their own process of holding public meetings, vote to adopt maps, and submit maps to the legislature. And then if that commission failed to adopt a map, it would then be submitted to the Utah Supreme Court for the Chief Justice to select which map. Now that's the independent districting committee. It's not the legislature. And then both of those come down to the legislature considers and votes on the maps, which they did. And they rejected the maps. You go to the left here, legislature may reject commission's maps, which is what they did. Legislature may enact the commission's maps. They did not. They rejected the maps. Go down again, Katie. Legislature may enact its own maps, which they did.
Yes.
And then issue a public explanatory report, which they did. Here's the problem, is that when this referendum was voted on, it was passed by 0.003% of the population of Utah. It was passed by Salt Lake County. That's dangerous when you have a large urban center directing the entire state's political process. That's how Colorado, that's why Colorado is in the mess that it's in right now, and why California is in the mess that it's in right now. Because you have urban centers running the entire state's process. So this was taken to court by those, the committee, the redistricting committee, not the legislative redistricting committee. The commission was taken to court, and they found a judge. And the judge sided with the redistricting commission. What they want, here's what their aim is. Their aim is to form a donut hole around Salt Lake, which will be of one political persuasion forever. The reason why this concerns Ephraim City is because our representative, Burgess Owens, who has spent more time in this city than anyone I know of in terms of a federal legislator, a congressman. Memorial Day, I was with Burgess Owens for 3 hours, touring the city. We were at the hydro plant, and he was going through the whole electrical system that Ephraim City has to understand it. As Margie said, he was here last week on Labor Day, and he was meeting with, he had a meeting in Fairview, a meeting in Manti. This representative has been the best thing that we have seen for Sanpete County. And now they're going to take his district and donut hole it into Salt Lake City. Heard today from our lobbyist in Washington, D.C., that Ben McAdams has already said he's going to run for that district and he will win it. And so I think it will be important for us and our residents to contact their legislators, Troy Shelley and Darren Owens, and say, please fight for us. Now, we probably will get another congressional district that we think will be Celeste Malloy. She's wonderful. She loves Sanpete County, but I want to stick with Darren Owens.
Rick Burgess.
I mean, and I want to stick with Darren Owens too.
Right.
At the state, but Burgess Owens. Because he has been so good to work with us. And so I would ask everybody, every resident of Ephraim City to provide feedback to Troy Shelley and to Darren Owens, because Darren read me some of the emails that he's been getting by members of this committee who have influence in places in Sanpete County that are pretty liberal. And he's getting emails from them saying, you've got to support the redistricting committee's maps. Well, no, constitutionally, it's the legislature that does the maps. Constitutionally, except for the referendum that says that they're supposed to work together, but the legislature can reject the maps, and they did. And so I would ask you to pay attention to this and to contact your state legislator, because it'll be the state legislators who will be deciding this. And I don't know that I've ever seen Darren or heard in his voice so much discouragement. He's usually very upbeat, but with this issue, he was pretty discouraged. Because judicially, there's judicial activism happening, and judicially, they are a little bit in a corner. So we'll have to see what happens. Katie.
All right. City manager's report. First, I'm going to have Chief Zeman come and make a quick report. Something exciting and wonderful. Yes. Surprise.
So I don't know, you guys have been in north end of town and seen the new addition that we've added to our PD. We've got a new speed trailer. That was provided by the state through a grant. So, and it's, I decided to place it on the north end of town to educate the residents, because there was some discourse of what our knowledge was of the speed change and when it happened. As Brian knows, we were in a meeting with UDOT. We discussed reducing the speed or several possible solutions that we can make Main Street safer, including Center Street, because that's I think that's one of our worst intersections for people crossing. And that was brought up as possible changes, but also the north end of town, which is where we're trying to get the stoplight, right? Heavily being pushed by the city.
All of us.
All of us.
So the next time we request them to do a study, let's do it during the temple open house and dedication. I'm serious.
Yes.
We've got to be smart about.
Right, and I don't know how much control we have of when they do their study, because it was done during January of whatever year it was completed, which we're not getting any tourist traffic at that time. You know, during the summer months, even though the college is out, it picks up on our main street and it's almost the same, so. But that's what I wanted to talk about with that speed trailer. It's a nice addition. We're probably gonna try for another one next year. And then our old one, that's up for another discussion, but probably donate it to Snow College Police so they could use it around campus. Anyways, that's all I have.
Thank you.
All right. And then I do have something that I want to talk to you guys about. So as I've been keeping you informed of moving the CCA Christensen cabin from behind the granary, moving it over to Pioneer Park, that is going very well. We did hit a bit of a snag today. Public Works was out digging out the spot to pour the pad and uncovered a rock lined hole. Don't think it's a well, it was for something else, but historic nonetheless. So there was a lot of interest. People at the park were really excited and taking pictures. And what I want to know is, so Sarah Thomas, who is with the DUP, would really, really love to keep the hole and
The whole thing?
the whole thing. I have heard that there's somebody who has a big chunk of bulletproof glass that they might be willing to donate to the cause to cover it. Not sure if it's big enough yet. That's one thing. But do we fill in the hole and just go with the plan of putting the cabin down? Or do we keep the hole to be put on display and keep there at Pioneer Park? They are able to shift the cabin so that it will accommodate the cabin and the hole, in spite of the hole. Now, I just wanted to get your feedback. Okay, price-wise, it's costing time for our public works. Yes, please.
I've had 6 of my crew over there for the last 2 days. So that's already 96 hours of labor. And at what we're supposed to charge, that's not $5,000 in labor already. And I kind of feel like that it has been wasted. So with the time that we are really short on time, which we can't make more of, I'd give this project like a week to get that pad done. We have oodles of work to do on the mountain for our sanitary survey. So my crews are tied up at least till 1st of October. So we will do whatever you guys decide. There just might be a delay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Yes.
What is Sarah's view, Sarah Thomas?
She really wants to keep it a lot.
Why?
Because it was originally associated with the Hans Hansen house. And
Do we
so
know that for sure? Or was it associated with Ephraim Ford?
I don't know if anybody can say.
It's right there.
Mhm.
Which predates the Hansen house.
I don't know if she can say definitively.
All Oh. You.
It's about 20 feet. I think. So that house did not have indoor plumbing until the addition was put on. I don't know when that was, in the 30s. So our sewer system was put in the 60s. So I don't know if it's as old as I think it is. It may be. I really have.
So.
I think all of the, did you send that to everybody, Brian?
Just to you.
Okay, so.
It's really cool. It's really amazing what they did back then, but.
Have all of you seen that? What do you think, council? Public Works has done a lot of work and Jeff makes a point. And, you know, are we gonna put a plexiglass over a sewer cesspool? Or do we need to say that?
A historical.
Historical.
Lloyd was wanting me to lift him in it. Because he thought it was a well. He wants to get the coins, and I told him right now, I said, there's no coins. Well, if there's a cast iron pipe going out of it, it's probably a cesspool.
Yeah.
What direction was it going?
So the this is directly south of the home, of the Hanson house.
Right, what direction was the pipe going?
Well, the pipe was coming from the house.
Oh, I see.
Into, there was no outlet, but it had since been rerouted and hooked to the existing.
So it's obviously, that's not how you would do a well, it's obviously a cesspool.
What's the difference in the historicity of it? Whether it's a well or an outhouse?
Ew.
With all the unknowns, I think we have to really think hard about putting pressure on the public works. I went down and looked at it for a while. I thought it was a cesspool. For a while, I thought it was a septic tank. I mean, a well. But with the information now, I say let's just fill it in and move on.
Michael, you had a thought?
So it probably became a cesspool used as a, septic tank, but was initially a well that probably dried up.
Do you think it was deep enough to be a well?
Probably at one point, and then then turned it into a septic tank, and it probably filled in. The one thing to consider is the Hans Hansen house is on the National Historic Register, so by finding this, does that require us to do? Is that included in that historic? As part of that historic building, and does that then open us up to having to excavate it, archaeology, all that, if we were to keep it open? Or
I need you to put some tape on your mouth. Because what you just brought up is, ugh. How would we know?
Put those words back in your mouth. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Ah. All right.
Who would we need to call that?
the historic register will have a flat, they'll have the what's it called? Yeah, they'll have the legal boundaries of the building and that, so.
I will bet the legal boundaries do not include this.
I was gonna say, if the addition was behind the house, it probably doesn't. Sarah's thought was that it was the original well for the house, and so. It's just exciting, hey, we found this as part of the house, but. As you mentioned, Mayor, it could be from the original fort as well, so. Yeah, it does. When I was there, I saw it was under the curb, so.
Yeah, I saw that also.
So we tore down the addition, right?
Which was not
Because
historic.
it was not historical. If this was connected to the addition, then wouldn't that be part of that same thought process?
Yeah.
You know, if I could just put a cover over it, put a little dirt on it until we have time to really research it and do it right.
Well, the CCA Christensen cabin is gonna go right over the top of it.
But they did say, Jeff did say they have another way to put the cabin. And
I didn't say that, Sarah said.
But it's gonna take him another week
yeah,
and another $9,600. Right?
5,000.
Right.
I would hate to cover it up if there's really some value. Some historical value. But if there's not, I'd be fine covering it up.
So how do you define historical value?
Well, I think we need to get somebody in here that knows what they're talking about.
But then we're talking about weeks,
Right.
and that puts Jeff out, I mean, he's gotta get ready for this
Yeah, so we'll come back.
sanitation.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion. I'm just one of us.
Mayor.
So we have a window.
Yeah. And how would you display this?
Okay, here is Sarah's idea. That we get a piece of plexiglass, very thick. And put it over and like perhaps have a little rock wall around it. That's our thought at this time. That is also a really good idea. And that way we could actually walk. Yes, and we could put a lock on it to keep people from scratching their names and stuff. The glass or plexiglass. It's expanding. This is
Yes, it's
the
getting.
life of its.
I think if we feel good about council, you tell me. I think we let staff investigate.
Okay.
And do a perimeter search.
Okay.
And see if anything comes up there, and then maybe ask the state historical people what they recommend.
Okay, we will do that.
Is that, well, council?
Would Mike actually be able to get us in touch with somebody? Since he's on the state.
Well, Sarah, yeah, she's it too.
Yeah. All right,
Okay,
so we're gonna hit pause. On
well, we're
moving
gonna hit pause anyway.
Yeah, we've got to hit pause. They've got something more important to do right now. Right? And in the meantime, we'll figure out what the historical value of the whole is. And then we'll inform you later. All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you. Anything else?
That's all.
Good.
Section pursuant to provisions of the Utah State Code 52-4.205 for the purpose of sale of real property.
Second. Motion made by Councilmember Stevens.